Hey guys, Dr. Keck here at the Sports Pod. Today I have Callie with me and we are going to be going over some things you can do for your low back. This is specifically geared towards gymnasts and cheerleaders, but of course, available to anybody that would like to watch it. Okay, so we're first going to start with that smashing. So we need our lacrosse ball, baseball, softball, whatever you have at home. We're going to get down on the mat here and Callie is going to put this on her low back. You're gonna find your spine and it's gonna go about a thumb's width on either side of the spine on that low back, wherever it feels best for you. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you do that. Good. From there, she's just going to lay her body over it. So go ahead and straighten out your legs. Good. And what side do you have it on?
The right.
Okay, so it's on her right side. She's going to take her right leg up to increase that tension and bring it back down. So we're gonna do this for two full minutes on this side. Bringing that leg up is really increasing that tension. Like all of our smashing, we always do it for 2 minutes. Time under tension is where those changes happen. 2 minutes is that magic number. So she's just easing into it. You can do this in as many places as it feels good. You should just make sure that you're doing it for those 2 minutes in order to make those changes happen. A spot I see in gymnasts and cheerleaders a lot is that what we call the TL junction. It's that transition zone between where your lumbar spine and your thoracic spine, where they're coming together. A lot of times that's where that hinge is happening. So if we are going near that point in the spine, that sometimes feels good for gymnasts and cheerleaders as well. Good. So in all of this today, we're really focusing on opening up other places of mobility to kind of give a little break to that low back. Because a lot of times all the stress is on the low back because you're lacking mobility in other areas such as the upper thoracic spine, those hips, wherever it may be. We need to really distribute those forces so they're not all in that one spot. Good, we have about 15 more seconds on this side and then we're gonna switch it to the other side. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so now she's gonna take it from that right side of her spine, move it over to the left. Again, it's about a thumb's width away from your spine, really wherever it feels good. And she's gonna do the same thing. So really make sure your body is flattened over that, and then to increase that tension, she's going to bend up her leg. Good. To increase it even more, to increase that tension. Like all of our smashing, it should be uncomfortable, but not impossible. So I don't want it so painful that you can't hold it for those full 2 minutes, but it should be uncomfortable. We gotta make some changes. How does it feel for you?
Uncomfortable.
Okay, uncomfortable, it's good. This step is just kind of priming our muscles for what we're going to do next. So it's super important in really everything. It's really good to do this after a workout, before a workout, really just getting those muscles nice and primed and moving through their full range of motion. We're about halfway there, 1 minute left. So as she's finishing this up, I'm gonna kind of talk about what we're going to go into next. So when we're done with this, we're gonna go into what we call CARs. That stands for controlled articular rotations. If you've watched some of these with us before, you're familiar with this. What that means is we're just going to take one joint through its full range of motion, just isolating that single joint. So in this case, we're gonna work on that thoracic spine and those hips because we gotta get those moving so we can give the low back just a little bit of a break. So she's almost done in about 20 seconds. Ten seconds. 3, 2, 1. Good. Okay, so now we are gonna go into what we call a thoracic car. So Callie's going to hold this ball into her chest, really squeeze it into her chest. And the point of this is we wanna be isolating that upper back. So that thoracic spine, we're going to basically be hinging over that ball as we move through its full range of motion. So I'm going to ask her to tuck into yourself, good. And now I want you to rotate as much as you can, good. And coming back to center. And now we are going to dump to the right, good. And coming back, try to get those elbows up to the ceiling, good. And coming around, and back down into flexion. Good, now we're gonna go the other way. So we're rotating as much as we can, coming back to center, dumping that shoulder, getting those elbows up to the ceiling, down, and back into flexion. Good. And again, we're going to rotate as much as we can. We want to be focusing on locking out that low back, so we only want movement through that upper back, that thoracic spine. We're dumping to the right. Elbows come up to the ceiling. Try to really feel it between those shoulder blades. Coming down. And back to center. Good. And again. And back. Now we're laterally flexing. Good, bringing those our elbows up to the ceiling. So this is really just a big circle we're drawing with our elbows, if you want to look at it like that. Okay, we're gonna do one more. Rotating, coming back to center. Then we're gonna dump. Elbows up to the ceiling. Down. Good, last one, we gotta go to the other side. Rotating, back to center. Good. Good. Perfect. So we want to get about 10 total rotations. So 10 can be 1, 2, but somewhere around 10 is the magic number there. Okay, we are going to transition into our hip cars. Same idea as this, but we're going to be isolating that hip. Important things to focus on here. We want to limit that movement through the low back. So we're actually going to stand up here. These are easiest if you have something to hold on to. So Callie's going to be holding on to this, and we are going to be doing a hip car with this hip first. So she's going to bring that hip up into what we call flexion. Good, bring it across your body just a little bit this way. So we call that adduction. So we're gonna close the book first. Then we're going to open that book up. Good. Once she can't go anymore, then we're gonna internally rotate that hip as we bring it around into that extension. Good, we're gonna pause here for a minute just because I want to explain. So we don't actually have a lot of hip extension as humans. A lot of times we'll try to fake that hip extension by really drilling into extension into that low back. That's what we're trying to avoid right now. So it's okay if you only have a little bit of hip extension, as long as you're nice and tight through that low back, okay? So good, coming back down, and then we're gonna reverse it. So coming back into hip extension, good. And then we're gonna externally rotate that hip, bringing that knee back up to that open book position. And good. As you can see, she's still driving up that knee. Great. Good. So we're gonna do 4 more of those at your own pace. Really isolating that hip joint, staying tight through everything else. Through the next couple exercises we're doing, I want you really to kind of focus on what we call like that ribs over pelvis position, that stacking, if you will. We're kind of stacking our ribs over that pelvis in order to stay away from what we call that open scissor position, which is what a lot of gymnasts and cheerleaders get into. It's where we're in that, what we call excessive lumbar lordosis. We gotta stack those ribs over pelvis. Good. It's normal for you to get crampy during these. We're just really exploring that full range of motion at that hip. Good. When you're doing these, I want you to really focus on where is it hard? Where are you having a hard, where is it getting stuck? That's important because then you can kind of spend some more time in those sticky spots later down the road. Good. Perfect. Okay, now she's going to switch sides and do it on the other side. Another thing worth mentioning, we want to make sure when we're doing these, if our belly button had a flashlight on it, that flashlight's always going to be facing forward. We never want to open it up because that would mean motion is coming elsewhere than just from our hip. So again, we're just focusing solely on that hip joint. Good. Each one of these that you're doing, you want to try to increase it just a little bit. So as you can see, when Callie comes back around, she's really pulling up that hip. That's awesome. We're really exploring that range of motion, trying to increase that range of motion here. This is also just a great exercise to really prime that hip joint, really waking it up in all of those ranges of motion. Good, last one. Good. Okay, so now those hips are nice and warm, that thoracic spine is nice and warm. We are going to go down into what we call couch stretch. So this is going to really increase that hip extension. So go ahead and go onto your knees. Good, and then one foot in front of you, one behind. Good, so you can do this up against a couch, you can do it up against a wall, really whatever is comfortable for you. I'm going to actually hold Callie's foot here. The closer your foot is, or your butt is to your foot, the harder this exercise is going to be. So from here, Callie is going to drive forward. Perfect, but as you can see, nothing happened through the low back here. We want all of that extension to be coming through that hip. So again, as all of our other stretches, we hold this for 2 minutes. Things to focus on here, tucking that pelvis under here, so we're not in that open scissor position. We've talked about it before, but that stacking position, we want those ribs stacked over that pelvis, tucking that butt under. And then as she's driving forward, I don't want her hips opening up. So if she were to open up this way, not so good. That kind of takes the tension off where we want the tension. So she's just driving forward through that hip, not the low back. Belly button, again, facing forward. That flashlight is forward and this. Good. So again, if we wanted to make this more difficult, I could just raise this foot more towards her butt. 30 more seconds. Three, two, one. Alrighty. And we are going to switch sides. If it's uncomfortable for you to do this on the floor, you can always put a pillow or something under that knee to give it a little bit more cushion. Same thing. And driving forward through that hip. So we're really getting that stretch through those hip flexors. So our psoas, our rectus femoris, those muscles that are crossing the hip there. So you may experience some like cramping or some shakiness, some jitters as you're doing any of these exercises we've done today. That's okay. That's just basically your brain telling your body you're not really used to those ranges of motion yet, and that's all right. That's why we're doing these, to get you used to those ranges of motion. So cramping, all of that is completely normal. Alrighty, we're about halfway there on this side. Thirty more seconds. Seconds. 3, 2, 1. Good. All right, we're going to end with some movement. So I'm going to have Callie get into what we call the quadruped position. So on all fours. And we're going to do what we call the segmental cat-cow. So I'm sure if you are, familiar with yoga, things like that, you know what the cat-cow is. Going up, bringing it down. So with this exercise, it's doing that, but we're going to really break it down so we get movement out of each of those vertebrae in the spine. So for Callie, we're going to start into extension. So I want her to start from the bottom here, and we're going to just kind of wave up the spine into that extension. Alrighty, and now we're gonna flip it and go into flexion. Good, and flipping again, hitting that extension. It should flow like a wave through the spine. You wanna be hitting each of those vertebrae, getting each of them to move independently of one another. By doing this, we can get rid of that, what we call that single hinge point. And we can distribute those forces throughout the spine. So when you're going into a lot of extension activities, back handsprings, body positions, if you're a cheerleader, we can distribute those forces when you're hitting those extension positions. So just nice and slow. Again, we're doing this for 2 minutes. Good. And we're gonna go down one more time and then up one more time. Again, like I talked about with the cars, you should spend time where it's sticky. If you notice something, you're like, oh, this doesn't really feel like it's moving at all, spend some time there. Try to get yourself to feel what's happening there. Sometimes this is really hard to feel. Good. Alrighty, go ahead and relax. So if you have any questions about the movements that we did today, or any questions about anything at all, feel free to reach out to us on Instagram @thesportspod, or you can find us on the website at www.thesportspod.co. Move free.